Hello fans and welcome. It's official, the Arizona Coyotes have relocated to Utah, and while the season is over, the fun is about to begin. I'm Randon, and alongside my co-hosts Dustin and Ryan, we will bring you inside the team, giving you all the news, highlights, and an in-depth analysis on everything the NHL in Utah has to offer. Welcome to another episode of The Two-Line Pass. Welcome in, fans. Another bonus episode of the Two-Line Pass podcast. Tonight's the night. After 3 rounds, we've got ourselves a Stanley Cup final. The Edmonton Oilers are going to face off against the Florida Panthers tonight. Game 1, Stanley Cup Finals, June 8th. And I'm here with Ryan and Dustin, and we're going to break it down like nobody has broken it down for you before. We're going to give you the ins. We're going to give you the outs. We're going to give you everything you're going to need to know to watch this series. Ryan, Dustin, are you ready to give the fans what they've been craving this entire season?
Man, I'm ready. I've been ready. I was born for this. I'm gassed up. I am excited. I'm ready for this shit. Sorry. I think I just gave us an R rating on the podcast feeds, but I don't care. I'm gassed up. And no,
I'm ready to go.
Not just because I had chili dogs for dinner. Ryan, are you ready? Are you ready, man?
I am as ready as I will ever be for a Stanley Cup final that doesn't include the new Utah hockey team.
Which will only take until next year.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I'm excited as I can be until we get to the promised land.
This is something I didn't really consider, that this will be the last time that I've watched it. Not even, I've watched a finals in disgust where I can't stand either team and I only wish that both teams could lose. But I've never actually thought about it from the perspective of like the homegrown team is out and the pain and the anguish that comes from. I think it's going to be totally different from like obviously having the team you cheer for out, but when it's the home team out, what a strange feeling that's going to be that we won't have to feel for years because we're going to go on an initial three-peat. But man, that 4th year when we lose in the finals, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt.
We are in the great state of Utah where a good portion of the people who live here, and I would imagine at least a portion of the people within the sound of my voice listening to this podcast, they believe in paying tithing, and that's what I'll think of year number 4. We're losing that series just to pay our tithing for finals victories. So I'm okay with that.
I will gladly pay that tithe to get a Stanley Cup here in Utah. I will gladly pay it. But alas, we've got to watch it go to either Edmonton for the first time since, 1990? Or Florida for the first time ever, at least to Celebration, Florida. It's made its way to Tampa Bay quite a few times, and I think South Florida would like to see that changed. I feel very comfortable speaking for South Florida that they would like to see a Stanley Cup head that way. But we're going to break it down quite simple, gentlemen, quite simple. We're going to go through the 4 main categories of hockey. We're going to go through offense and defense, goaltending, special teams, and we're going to pick one or the other. You think Florida has the edge? Do you think that the Edmonton Oilers have the edge? That's all you got to do. You got to pick one or the other. Maybe give us a little insight, and then we'll just kind of talk about some random things. Like, did you know that this is the furthest distance traveled between teams in a Stanley Cup final ever in history?
I knew that. I saw that in a tweet. So I am aware of that statistic. That's the benefit of today's information age and having information at our fingertips on our cell phones through Twitter and X and Facebook and all the wonderful social medias, is that I get to see that type of information as soon as somebody figures out the math. I love it.
Geographers smarter than I am are going to do that all the time. But hey, speaking of socials, at the Two-Line Pass on Twitter now, you can follow us anytime you'd like, at Highlights Ute for Dustin, at Carnes Ryan 0420, and at Randon TLP. Join us for all the insights and the random. Dustin is a fiend on the Twitter. I've seen him tweet. I've seen some tweets, and I've read some tweets, and that's as far as I got.
I will add, follow us on TikTok as well if you're one of our fans who's listening to this because you're getting into the game now. because the NHL is moving to Utah and you want to learn about the game, you want to learn about the rules, we're going to start uploading videos on TikTok and YouTube explaining the rules, explaining to you what icing is and offsides and all the different things that you may not know about the game. So follow us across the board, all the social medias, and you will learn, and we will go on this journey together. I will hold your hand through your hockey fandom as we learn the game together, because I understand some of that, the rules, but I'm learning to become a more passionate and involved and invested fan. I'll take you along the ride with me. Let's go. Follow us everywhere.
Now that I think about it, this will be one of our last audio-only episodes. I think we have this, and then maybe one other episode will be audio-only, and then we're getting video. Ryan, what are you thinking about that? Video's pretty sweet. That's the future.
Yeah, a successful podcast is usually not just sound, but video only. And once you get to see all of our smiling faces, you're going to learn to fall in love with the podcast even more. Yeah, I'm super excited.
Back in my day, we didn't have video in our podcasts. They just casted their pods.
Back in your day, you didn't have podcasts. Like what?
No, I didn't. We had to listen
Adam
to
Carolla didn't start the podcast thing until like 2005.
Hey, I never thought podcasts would catch on, but here we are. They're quite easy to make, in case anybody wants to know. It's pretty fantastic. Very accessible. A very accessible form of medium. A very fun form of media. Like, we're all having fun, and it's going to be a fun episode, but let's get right into it. Let's break it down. So, as we've discussed, Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. Florida Panthers took a straight line path through the Eastern Conference, beating Tampa Bay in the first round, Boston in the second round, and then they took on the New York Rangers and crushed them in the Eastern Conference final. The Edmonton Oilers took the path in the Western Conference, defeating the Los Angeles Kings. Then they beat the Vancouver Canucks. Then they beat our beloved Dallas Stars.
I didn't hear that last one, but we can go right over it.
Good riddance. We'll never have to mention them again except for when Utah beats them. And here they are in the Stanley Cup. Lots of offense, maybe some defense played, maybe some goaltending played, and a heck of a lot of special teams. Let's talk offense first. Guys, who are you giving the edge to? Florida, Edmonton on offense. Dustin, I'm going to let you take it away first.
All right, I'm going to jump right into it. I came prepared. The Edmonton Oilers have the fourth best offense in the NHL throughout the regular season. It's continued into the postseason. That is where the edge is in these Stanley Cup Finals. They have the better offense. The Florida Panthers, they're no schlub, but the Edmonton Oilers, they are better on offense. That's where I give my advantage there.
We are putting the Edmonton Oilers up on the big board for Dustin. They were the best, one of the best in the regular season. He thinks they're the best in the Stanley Cup Finals. Ryan, do you agree?
I'm torn on the offense because, yeah, Edmonton does have a high-octane offense, but they haven't had to play a team like the Panthers. Because, yeah, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they can all score goals, but can they score enough goals while getting punched in the face and slashed by Sam Bennett and spit on by Matthew Tkachuk and, getting tickled from behind by Brandon Montour? Like, they're going to be terrorized. They have had, there were no scrums in any of the Edmonton games. Barely, pushing, shoving, sure, maybe. Nobody got punched in the mouth. Nobody had real shit talk going on. Dallas kind of just didn't bully them like we all wanted them to. But Florida will bully their offense. So I think I'm going to give it to Florida. I think they are going to be the scrappier team in a way, and that's going to lead their offense because I don't think McDavid and them are prepared for 7 straight days of hell in every single game that they're going up against Florida.
It's only going to be 7 straight days because Edmonton's going to sweep this series. Edmonton has the far better offense, and it's not even close. They have, without a doubt, Edmonton has the best single line in the NHL. Let's run it down for you. Connor McDavid leads the NHL playoffs in points with 31. Leon Draisaitl, second with 28. Evan Bouchard, third, 27. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, fourth, 20. And then Matthew Tkachuk sneaks in, but then Zach Hyman, 18 points. 5 of the top 6 point getters in this playoffs are from the Edmonton Oilers. And I know we're going to say, well, who did they play? Well, we all thought that defense was going to win championships and that the Dallas defense was going to absolutely shut them down, and it did not shut that line down. That line single-handedly defeated the Dallas Stars. So the Edmonton Oilers don't need anybody else, but they are line for line, except on one point, which we'll get to that later. But line for line, they're the better offensive team, and it's not even close. I give a huge offensive edge to the Edmonton Oilers.
All right, so yes, Edmonton does have the best offense in hockey right now. We can give them that. But I think after watching the Dallas series, we can admit one thing. The Stars were slow. Nobody could keep up with Connor, with any of them. They were outpaced. They were too big, other than Heiskanen. Heiskanen did a good job. But even as good as Tanev was, and as good as I believed he is, he's too slow. The one thing Florida has is, sure, they might not have the best defensemen in the league, but they have faster defensemen who are smaller. And the other thing is their forwards didn't do anything to, Jamie Benn was basically just non-existent in that entire series. And Jamie Benn is the guy who gets suspended every playoffs for getting the wires crossed. I've never seen a calmer Jamie Benn. He let his team down. But anyways, the Florida team, I feel like that offensive they're not going to, the Florida team can keep up with them speed and skill-wise because Alexander Barkov is arguably the best defensive forward. He won the defensive forward trophy this year, the Selke. But the Edmonton has had such a soft and easy ride, like their forwards have, but because they haven't gone up against dickheads, and the Florida Panthers are dicks. Arguably, in Randon's opinion, they're the dirtiest team in the NHL. But dirty teams win Stanley Cups. Look at the Detroit Red Wings of the 1990s. Look at the New Jersey Devils of the 1990s. Look at the Pittsburgh Penguins of the late 2000s. That's a shot at my sister. Ronnie, if you're listening, I love you. But the Edmonton Oilers, yes, they have that good, but that's it. They have 2 lines. 2. It's McDavid's line with Hyman and Nugent-Hopkins, and it's Connor Brown, Draisaitl, and fucking whoever they want to pair him with. That's it. And then their 4th line occasionally will play, but they're not really doing much. But Florida, their 4th line chips in just as much as the first line does offensively. And Matthew Tkachuk, 2 years ago in Calgary, when he was in Calgary and they played Edmonton, he got shut down by Evander Kane. But I don't think Evander Kane's in the same mindset that he was 2 years ago to shut down Matthew Tkachuk. And I just feel like the biggest X factor for the offense is the physicality, because they haven't been beat up. They haven't got, you know what I mean? They haven't had to deal with every play after the whistle. You're getting shoved. You're getting cross-checked. Shit's going to happen. They haven't been bullied, really. And I feel like Connor McDavid, not to call him a pussy, but he's a pussy.
I will give you that they haven't played a dirty team. They have not played a dirty team. You are absolutely correct. Now, there's a lot of new fans out there that maybe haven't watched the Florida Panthers all that much, and they're going to see a little South Florida tradition that is throwing rats on the ice, because yes, Florida will score at least 1 goal in Florida, and you will see some rats on the ice. And I'm going to tell you about why they do that tradition, because their team are such dirty rat bastards that's what they do. They are such dirty rats that they are the dirtiest rats that you'll ever see. They're a bunch of Brad Marchands. They might as well be called the Florida Brad Marchands. They're that ratty.
Whoa there. Sam Bennett took out Brad Marchand for all of us. He punched him in the mouth for everybody and ended his playoff run. How dare you? And I just wanted to add one more thing that just popped into my head. We haven't even talked about Sam Reinhart. Sure, Edmonton has a great power play. Are probably the best in the league, but Sam Reinhart scored 27 goals on the power play. You know what? Like, I feel like Florida can match the Edmonton offense in talent-wise. Maybe not talent-wise, but production, because they get it from 4 lines instead of 2. But Edmonton can't match Florida in the nitty-gritty garbage goals, other than Hyman, but he only does that on the fucking power play.
I'm glad you brought it up. We'll talk about it more in the special teams, but there you have it. We've got our 3 selections for offense. Recap: Randon takes Edmonton, Dustin takes Edmonton, Ryan takes Florida. Now, let's move to the championship-winning defensive side of the ice. Defense, how we feeling? Edmonton, Florida, Dustin, what do you think?
Florida had a top 2 defense in the regular season in terms of goals against them per game, save percentages, shutouts. They lead the league in penalty minutes, they're top 2 in the league in penalty minutes, so they play a violent game. They're going to hit you, they're going to bully you, and they don't let you score. They've continued that into the postseason. Sergei Bobrovsky is the best goalie in the playoffs left over, probably second best behind the Otter, who sadly let me down this postseason. But I think Florida has a very obvious edge in terms of defense in these Stanley Cup Finals.
Defense wins championships, and Dustin thinks Florida's got the defense. Ryan, you disagreed on offense? Do you agree on defense?
You know, this might come as a surprise to people, but no, I don't agree. Dustin is very about the analytics and the numbers, it seems. You know, he's reading off all these stats. I don't know if he's watched very many of these playoff games other than the Dallas series, but Edmonton's defense has been far and away better than anybody ever expected it to be. They've killed 31 penalties in a row. I think their penalty kill is on 31 straight or 29 straight, something like that. Evan Bouchard playing out of his mind. Darnell Nurse turned it up ever since the media called him out. He's playing out of his mind. Stuart Skinner, I don't know how he became the hottest goalie of all time, but he did for that little run. So I think Edmonton's defense is going to be a bigger deal than I think the Florida Panthers are going to realize. Maybe not for the whole series, but I think Edmonton's defense will seal them a win. So I'm going to give the defensive edge to Edmonton.
And Ryan, I like that you brought up Stuart Skinner there. I do want to give that man his flowers, because I believe a couple of episodes ago, as we were talking about the NHL playoffs as a whole, as we were getting into, I think it was the Eastern Conference, Western Conference finals, you said that Stuart Skinner was the worst of the 4 goalies left in the playoffs. That man is 4-0 in closeout games in these playoffs. So if this comes down to a tight series, you could give the edge to Skinner just because of how clutch that man is. You know, in sport, sometimes there are people who they step up in the clutch. There's all sorts of performances that you can look back on where somebody stepped up and played above their normal skill level as soon as clutch time comes around, and he's definitely been one of those guys.
I will agree. I talked the most shit about Stuart Skinner. I have all year. We didn't have this podcast all year, but if you know me in my personal life or on my personal Facebook, I don't like Stuart Skinner. I never thought he was going to be a Stanley Cup winning goalie, and that man has force-fed me my words because he heard what I said on this podcast. I know he did. He heard me talking shit about him, and he was like, you know what? I got to prove Ryan wrong. I got to prove him wrong. I'm not going to let this toothless loser prove me wrong. And he did. He has proved me wrong, and he is now riding a beautiful wave. But the argument against that is he's on a hot wave right now. Sergei Bobrovsky has proven the last, 3 or 4 years, or every time he's gone to the play, he is the playoff goal. He's kind of like a Lundqvist during the regular season.
You guys are just all about the goalies, and I would like to point out, yes, his Stuart Skinner's turnaround, was it after this podcast called him out? So is there a 2-line pass bump? Is it real? Yes, there's no other explanation for it. It's absolutely real. But he's still not very good. We'll get to that in the goaltending. But I do want to point something out, that Dustin and myself are the only two people who are speaking any kind of sense, because Ryan has been flat out wrong. He was wrong on offense, and now he's flat out wrong on defense, because the Edmonton Oilers play a little brand of hockey I like to call the best defense is a good offense. And that means they don't play defense at all. They only play offense, and their job is to outscore you. And that's what they're going to do every single time. But defensively, they are not a sound defensive team. Evan Bouchard is not a sound shutdown defenseman. He is a high-octane offensive defenseman. And Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci are probably the two worst defensemen in the game right now. Maybe ever in the history of hockey. Maybe not that bad, but they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad when they're off their game. And you could argue when they're on their game, they're serviceable, but they're a liability almost always. And they're going to be a liability in the finals. I think they're going to be a liability in the finals. Will the offense overcome it? Find out in 15 to 17 minutes when I tell you. But I'll tell you right now, Edmonton's defense is bad. Florida's defense is quite good, and you guys are right. They play a smash mouth brand of hockey, and they are going to hit you and hit you and hit you and hit you, and they are going to play sound defense. Also, little tie-in, guys. Remember that defenseman that the Arizona Coyotes drafted, a little Oliver Ekman-Larsson? Do we have a duty, an obligation to cheer for him coming from Arizona, spreading his wings, flying, making it to the finals in Florida? I don't know, but I will say that he's part of a defensive core that is far and away better in almost every aspect, with the exception of offensive output, which maybe that's the way the game is going. I don't know, but I'm giving the edge 100% on defense. I'm giving the edge to Florida. Now, guys, I want you to go back to talking about your goalies.
Well, no, I got one more thing I want to say on the defense since we're there. Yes, Edmonton does play. Everybody knows when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, your team motto is, if we score more goals than them, we can't lose. But I just want to say, I feel like the Edmonton defense gets a lot of crap for not being shut down necessarily. But the way Stuart Skinner is playing, with the fact that, Evan Bouchard may not be the shutdown defenseman, but Darnell Nurse has sure turned it up for the last two or three games of the Dallas series. And I feel like Cody Ceci is not that bad. And the Edmonton defensemen are a lot bigger than they're a lot bigger than you would expect. But I'm not going to say they're the best, but I think they're gonna win out a game, and I think they can compete with the Florida defense. Because Florida's defense is, it's smash mouth and mean, but they've been bullying and picking on guys who have a smaller defense, other than maybe the Rangers. They don't have a small defense. But I feel like the Edmonton defensemen can shut down the Florida forwards easier than the Florida defensemen are going to shut down the Edmonton forwards.
All right, we've got two of the four categories down. And now we've talked a little bit about it. The goaltending is obviously very important when you talk about defense as a whole. But let's break down the two goalies, because we do have Stuart Skinner, who has taken his lumps. He's maybe played suboptimally in the first couple of series, but played out of his mind against Dallas. And then on the other side, you've got Sergei Brabovsky, who's maybe been the consummate professional and has been maybe the most consistent goalie throughout the playoffs. I don't know. Let's find out. Dustin, who do you give the edge, Stuart Skinner or Sergei?
No, I talked a lot about the goalies when I was talking about the defense. That's sort of like the backbone of the defense. If anything gets past the defense, but it's not getting past the goalie, and that's good defense one way or another. Bobrovsky was, like you just said, he's been probably the most consistent goalie throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he was the most consistent goalie throughout the entire regular season as well. So despite how hot Skinner has been, especially in the last series against Dallas, you got to give the edge to the guy who's constantly good, rather than the guy who's just sort of playing above his level right now. So you got to give the edge to Bobrovsky, I'd say.
Ryan, do you finally agree with Dustin, or are you sticking with your guns that you like Stewart?
I said that Stuart Skinner was the hottest goalie on a wave right now, but I do want to give I'm taking Florida in the goaltending. I do think Bob, if the difference maker is Stuart Skinner, I don't think will steal you a game. He'll make good saves. And, well, I mean, he's been proving me wrong in the Dallas series. He stole a couple games there. But Bobrovsky is a game. The later a game goes, the better Bob gets. And that can be scary, especially if you want to push it into overtime. He's one of the best. And I think Bob, especially being there last year and the heartbreak of losing to Vegas, Bob's on a mission. I feel like he's going to get Florida. We're going to see the best Bob in this series.
Hey, look at us go, guys. Look at us go. Look at this teamwork. We're finally agreeing on something because I, too, have Florida taking the edge in goaltending. I think Sergei Bobrovsky is the most solid and a very fundamentally sound goaltender. And I think Stuart Skinner is one of those goalies where he will either be crucified for not being good enough and take a lot of blame where I don't think he'll deserve it, or he will be one of those goalies who will be remembered as when it came down to it and it came down to crunch time, he stepped it up and he took them to victory. I, however, don't see it. I think he's going to do the former. I think he's going to take a lot of heat unnecessarily, and Sergei's just going to be so good. Edmonton is going to score, but I don't think they're going to score quite as much as they have in the past. And the big question is, will it be enough? Will the goals they get past Sergei be enough, or will Florida score enough on the other side? But I will tell you that when you look at goalies for goalies, even if the wins end up not being there, I still think Sergei Bobrovsky is the better goalie, and I give Florida the edge going into the series. When we're talking special teams, do they have what it takes to get past the Edmonton Oilers, who are having what can only be described as a very special teams playoff run so far? The last category, guys, special teams. Dustin, who are you giving the edge to? Edmonton or Florida?
This is a classic strength versus strength battle because Edmonton, they have the best power play offense in the postseason. They had a top 10 power play offense all regular season. And the Florida Panthers are the most penalized team in the league. I think it was second most in the regular season, the most penalties in the postseason. But they also kill penalties really well, which is something that you have to be good at. If you're going to take those penalties, you have to be good at killing power plays. But when I look at that, despite how good Florida is at killing power plays, and despite that they're willing to play that more aggressive, hard-nosed style and give you power plays in return of kind of punching you in the mouth, I think that you're going to find yourself in trouble when you're giving up too many power plays, especially against a team that is as good as at scoring on the power play as Edmonton is. So this one, I'm going to give the edge to Edmonton. I think that Florida is just going to find themselves in trouble too often with taking too many penalties against a team that is really good at making you punishing you for that mistake.
Ryan, what do you think? Do you give the edge on the special teams to Edmonton, or do you give it to Florida?
I'm probably going to say Edmonton, but here's how I'm looking at it. Florida's power play during the regular season was right up there with Edmonton and being like a top 10 power play. So Florida knows they are a very good power play team, but Dustin's right. When you're taking that many penalties against a normal team, that's fine. You can kill off 4 or 5 penalties in a game and probably skate off okay. If you give the Edmonton Oilers 4 or 5 penalty or power plays, they're scoring 3 or 4 goals. It's not your fault. It's just that power play is built only to score goals, and it's only a matter of time before they do that. So if Florida can stay out of the penalty box enough, or kind of, even it out to where maybe if we're taking a penalty, we're taking one of them with us, you know what I mean? Like, get them into some shit. If Florida can, if they can balance it right, I feel like Florida can compete with them. But if they are typical Florida and they just want to start taking 5 or 6 penalties a game, Edmonton's going to absolutely destroy them on the power play. And Edmonton's penalty kill has been really, really good. Florida's is very good too, but you could only hold McDavid and them for so long. Like, eventually that power play is going to hurt you, and we'll see if Florida can kind of balance taking penalties versus being chippy and being goons.
I think you guys have summed it up. I think it's going to come down to, as it often does, it's going to come down to power plays. I think sometimes in the playoffs you see a little bit less of that, and so whichever team can stay the most disciplined, even with a little bit of leeway, is usually going to have the edge. But I give a huge edge to Edmonton there. Once again, last year's playoff run was a truly, I think they were at one point going into the Vegas series, they were at 50% or higher. It was insane how good their power play was last year. This year, they're at 37.3% on the power play. So if you give them 3 power plays a game, they are going to get a goal out of it. And so
that's still so stupid. 33 fucking percent on a power play. Like, that's so dumb.
It's absolutely incredible how well they play. But that line, I mean, you said it, like, a lot of their offensive production comes on the power play. And yes, they get a little bit of even strength production, but they have their best players on the ice together during the power play. They're on the power play line together, and when you have 5 of the best players on the ice together, you're going to get some production. Now, I will say Florida's about middle of the road in terms of their power play. And their penalty kill, there's this new stat, I don't know if you guys saw, the net power play percentage and net penalty kill percentage, which takes into account, so the net penalty kill takes into account shorthanded goals. And Florida goes from an 88% power play or penalty kill percent to a 92 penalty kill percent. So they score shorthanded goals, and that's what it is. If you score a shorthanded goal, it's essentially removes a power play goal away. So when you're comparing penalty kills, if you factor in Florida shorthanded goals, it's not quite the discrepancy. It's only about a 3 percentage points different versus 5. So they both are very good on the power or the penalty kill, but Edmonton is far and away better on the power play. So I'm going to give the big edge to Edmonton on the power play, on special teams. If Florida can stay out of the penalty box, though, well, will they win the Stanley Cup? I don't know. But let's take a look, guys. Let's take a look at our big board, and then let's give our thoughts, our overall thoughts, maybe some keys. Maybe the key to the win for Florida is to stay out of the penalty box. Maybe the key to a win for Edmonton is draw penalties. Is that what we're looking at? Is that the only thing? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Take a look. I've got our very official 2-line pass tracker. Does everything look correct for you guys? Mine, I had the Oilers on the offense, edge to Florida on the defense, edge to Florida on goaltending, edge to the Oilers on special teams. Dustin, you had the same thing. Ryan, you went opposite in almost everything except for special teams and goaltending. You went opposite on 2 things.
You went opposite you went 50-50. Opposite with offense,
I went
defense.
50-50.
Agreed with us, goaltending and special teams. So we're 50-50.
I think it's going to be a good series.
Ryan, give us your thoughts. Give us your keys, putting into perspective the whole picture, not just looking at one of these facets on their own in a vacuum. Put all 4 together. Give us the picture. Give us your keys to the series and who you got.
Well, so I can't speak for you guys. I don't know how many playoff games you guys really did watch. I know Dustin probably only really paid attention to the Dallas series. Brandon, I don't know. I don't know how much you guys were watching. But from the games I did watch, I feel like Edmonton is still playing their regular season brand of hockey, where it's if we score more goals, we can win. Like, we're going to do that. But they're still making bad mistakes in the neutral zone. Their defense is it's really 50-50 on whether their defense is going to be incredible or absolute dog shit. I think Florida plays a playoff kind of hockey where everybody is out there giving, like, nobody's taking extra, no forward on Florida is going to have 25 minutes of ice time. It's not going to happen. They're all going to be under 20. It's going to be balanced out, and it's going to be 4 lines of just beating you down and aggressive. They block shots. They finish their checks every time. They win it. They go to the scrums. Like, they push, they shove, they battle back. Florida is the best third period hockey team in the NHL. I want to say they're at a plus 23 goal differential on the regular season and a plus 13 in the playoffs in the third period. They're also like 60-0-4 in their last 64 games when leading after the third period or leading into the third period. So Florida knows how to close out games. Edmonton, however, I don't think can close out a game, especially after they're going to have to deal with absolute hell every night. No, I think Edmonton will make it. They're going to play good, and Connor McDavid, you can only hold him back for so long. But I feel like Florida plays a Stanley Cup type of hockey, whereas Edmonton is playing just Edmonton hockey. Like, Florida's got that extra gear they can turn it into. Edmonton kind of just survives. But Florida will go on the hunt, and if they smell blood, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Do you think it goes 7?
No. As much as I want it to go 7, I feel like the first couple games will be it's going to be Florida in 6. We'll see after game 1 if I change my mind to Florida in 5. We'll see how Edmonton handles that game 1 in Florida, getting rats thrown at them, getting heckled by just whatever people live in Florida. We've all seen the memes. Can't imagine Florida hockey fans are any nicer than Florida man. So, but yeah, I'm going to take Florida in 6. So I did just look up some stats real quick that I wanted to check. Connor McDavid in career games versus the Florida Panthers. In 13 games, he has 26 points. But he's also a -2 in that. But I also feel like Connor McDavid's one of those people who, if you look up his stats against most teams, it pretty much looks like that. And there are some that are way worse than 2 points a game. Like, that's not bad. To hold McDavid to 2 points a game is pretty good. Like, that's not bad. I think, even though they only play, twice a year, if that, usually. And I think the ice is going to be a big thing in this one, like the ice and the travel and the ice, you know what I mean? Because going from Edmonton down to Florida, it's going to suck either way. But at least, in Edmonton, the ice quality, Florida, the ice changes every goddamn game. You know what I mean? Like, some days they're having problems with it sticking together. Other times it's too stuck together. Like, they have issues down there all the time. And that takes a wear on you. I'm going to give my edge to the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup.
Florida in 6 is the pick from Ryan. Dustin, give us the fullness of the gospel. What do you got?
Okay, I'll give you the keys to winning the Stanley Cup for each of these teams. Florida is just to play your game and sort of push the edge and push the envelope of what the Zebras are going to let you get away with. Give a little bit of hope that something that happens a lot in the professional sports world happens, and that's that they just sort of swallow their whistle and let the kids play, as they say. If they can kind of push that line and play tough and play aggressive and play hard-nosed, but keep themselves out of the penalty box, I think they're going to find a lot of success, especially if they can sort of get Edmonton off of their game offensively. If you're Edmonton, I'm going to give you their key, which you may recognize. It is take the fall, act hurt, get indignant. One more time. Take the fall, act hurt, get indignant. Send them to the box so that you can employ your power play and make your hay where you make it the best. If you can do that and make them pay on the offensive side and keep them playing shorthanded, that is Edmonton's key to this. But sadly, I don't think that happens. I agree with Ryan. I think Florida wins this one in 6. But yeah, take the fall, act hurt, get indignant. That's my advice to you, Edmonton.
I love the reference. I love the Mighty Ducks reference. I love a little bit of panache coming out of you two. I just wish that you guys were a little more intelligent. And maybe Ryan's been throwing out a lot of I don't think you guys have watched much hockey lately. Well, guess what, Ryan? You're only going to get to watch 5 more games because Edmonton is going to close this one out in 5. I remember, let's go back in time, a little bit of hype surrounding these Florida Panthers going in. They were super hot, weren't they? Going in, they had just crushed Carolina, which looked like the team to beat, and they made them look silly. And they came in thinking, oh, yeah, we're the ones that can take down the Golden Knights. And then what happened? Wow, a real big stinker. Florida was awful. But let me run something down for you. Top 10 in points, last playoffs, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault, Mark Stone, Chandler Stevenson, Ivan Barbashev. 5, count them, 5 Golden Knights in the top 10 in points. Guess how many Florida Panthers were in the top 10 in points? Anybody? Show of hands.
5.
How many do we need? Ooh, Ryan, do you have a guess?
0.
1. 1. They're the Florida Matthew Tkachuks. Okay? And you can't win with just one player. You can win with one line, which is what Edmonton has. The best line in hockey, and they will use it to deadly efficiency. They are going to crush Florida, and I wouldn't put it past another 7-1 game-sealing win. I would actually like Edmonton to sweep them so that they could hoist the cup in Edmonton. I think Canada gets their first Stanley Cup since 1993. I think they're going to do it in dominant fashion. I just don't know who's going to be the Conn Smythe. I have not decided, but NHL really loves Connor McDavid. I think they're going to find a way to give it to him. I guess you got to give it to him. He's going to have the most points by the end of it. He's going to have a pretty solid argument for it, and I think the NHL is going to benefit tremendously from having Connor McDavid, Conn Smythe winner on the Edmonton Oilers, first Canadian team since 1993 to hoist the cup.
I don't care if it's Florida representing us. This great country is not losing to our own hat, Brandon. We are not losing to America's hat in hockey. Ryan, what did you have?
I was just going to say, sure, there's nobody on Florida in the top 5 or top 10 other than Matthew Tkachuk in points. But, I can't go against a team that they're not going to lose. There's no way Edmonton wins in a sweep, let alone a gentleman's sweep. I don't know. I don't know what my co-host is smoking. It's clearly better than the stuff I have been smoking. So take that with a grain of salt, and you're crazy. That was all I had to add.
I am Smoke Canada. Do you see how I did that? Do you see how clever I am?
That worked out really well, Brandon. I'm very happy for you.
I thought of that for about 20 seconds before I launched it at you guys. Oh, boy. That's it. That's the breakdown. You guys are now well-versed in hockey. If you've seen an article that, 10 things you need to know about the series, forget about it. Don't even read it. Don't even bother. Just listen to this podcast because we gave you what you need to know. We gave it in a digestible format. You can just sit in your car. Maybe you sit in your bed. Maybe your sofa. I don't care where you are. Maybe you're on a run. But you got the soulful voices of Brandon, Ryan, and Dustin leading you to the hockey promised land. And guys, it's one more season. We have at most 7 more games we've got to get through, and then the hype is real. There will not be a single season played without the Utah hockey team at the helm. Are we going to win every single game? I can't say. But yes, we will.
The New York Yankees. the New York Yankees have a club motto where it is believed that they are going to win every single game. They go in every single year believing they're going to win 162 baseball games. I think Utah has that same motto. I think we could be the next New York Yankees.
Well, we're going to keep breaking the team down for you. It's going to be exciting to watch the offseason as it unfolds. It's going to be exciting to watch these finals. I know we had our disagreements, we had our battles, and we took some pot shots, but I do want to circle back one thing. I think here's going to be the key. I think Stuart Skinner is going to get crucified, and wait, I don't want to say that. I'm editing that out, but wait a minute. Okay. I do want to say one thing. I want to hedge that if Florida does manage to win, I think Stuart Skinner is going to get crucified, and it's not going to be his fault. If Edmonton loses, it's because Edmonton's defense left Stuart Skinner high and dry, and their offense, namely it's going to be Leon Draisaitl, will just vanish. Leon will not play up to par, and Stuart Skinner is going to get the blame. And Edmonton's going to say, if we only had a goalie, if our goalie could only play just good enough. No, if you only had a defensive motto that was better than score more goals. That's the only thing I want to say if Florida somehow manages to win. Otherwise, I think they are going to win, and it's going to be fun to watch.
I appreciate the effort that you just went through to hedge your prediction. I think Edmonton's going to win. If they lose, it's because of this, but I think they'll win. I really appreciate the effort that went behind you hedging that bet.
It's my unbiased opinions. I give the full picture. I have to account for all possibilities, and I want the fans at home to know what they can expect regardless of the outcome, because I just predicted the future if Florida wins. But I've also predicted the future if Edmonton wins. I'm playing both sides, so I'm always winning.
I like it. It's very heads I win, tails you lose. I like the effort. Just stacking the deck so that you can't lose. It's the best way to make yourself look like you know what you're talking about. It's like those old the commercials that you used to hear on sports radio that was call this, we guarantee we're going to give you the winner of tonight's Monday Night Football game. Call tonight, it's our free pick. And half the people that call get one pick, and half the people that call get the next pick. And then they go, oh, wow, I can't believe they hit it again. And those half call again, and they get the next pick, half and half. And by the time it gets down to it, 25% of your audience thinks that you know everything. So I got to give you your flowers with that effort.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
I'm just playing the game. And this game is hockey. And we're here to talk all about it. Guys, thanks again for another episode of the Two Line Pass podcast. Please join us every Wednesday for our regular episodes. And then we're going to have some game day episodes throughout the regular season. We're going to keep with our Wednesday episodes as well. And then we're going to sprinkle these bonus episodes in whenever we can, whenever we feel like it, or whenever you guys have a topic you want us to discuss. It could get wild in the off season. We'll see what we want to talk about. But guys, thanks again for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's game. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Two Line Pass podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at the Two Line Pass. You can follow Dustin at Highlights Ute. You can follow Randon at TLP Randon and Ryan at Carnes Ryan 0420. During the off-season, new episodes of the podcast drop every Wednesday with bonus episodes throughout. And during the season, we will have our weekly show plus game day episodes so you don't miss a minute of the action.